all of us should be questioning the medications that we're being told that we have to have or that we need to take. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of just ask a lot of questions. Before you go on a medication, ask your doctor how long you should be on it and how will they take you off of it? Because that's the other problem is a lot of women are prescribed SSRIs, antidepressants, and are told, oh, well, it's just for a period of time. And then they're on them 5, 6, 10 years later. And, you know, they're not trained on how to take people off medications. It's a trial and error thing. So I'm a big proponent. Ask a lot of questions, and I would look into some holistic things first and foremost.
That was Dr. Anna Marie Frank, a doctor of traditional naturopathy and a Ph.D. in natural medicine. Also the founder of Happy Whole You Wellness Centers. And she has a book called Stop Bullying Yourself. So you've landed on the Me and My Health Up podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Hartcher. I'm a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten your well-being. And I've brought Dr. Anna Marie Frank on the episode to talk to you about mental health. And she shares mental health based on her personal struggles with her own mental health, her journey, what worked, what didn't work. And so you'll get a lot of profound insights, and in particularly on biofeedback and how you can use biofeedback to help you on your wellness journey. So without much further ado, I'd love to welcome you into the discussion I'm having with Dr. Anna Marie Frank. Welcome on the Me and My Health Up podcast. How are you, Dr. Anna Marie?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
So great to have you on the show. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Bakersfield, California in the US of A.
Beautiful spot in the world. I guess it's quite warm for you over there at the moment.
Yeah, most definitely. It's where I live, it's the desert. And so it got up to 98 this past week. So we are warm.
Wow. Yeah, the Australian listeners won't be relating to that because we're in the middle of our winter.
Yep.
But so great to have you on. And I'd love for you to share with the listeners as to how you've arrived at what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, my journey started way back before I even realized. Really in high school, I struggled with my mental health. Back then, we didn't, you wouldn't say someone had depression or you wouldn't say someone had anxiety. Like those weren't words and labels that were thrown around back then. It was just kind of, I felt, unhappy. And I felt embarrassed and ashamed of that. And so I didn't really tell anyone. And you would look at my life and think, what do you have to be unhappy about? I was, I got good grades. I was a wonderful athlete. I had, a roof over my head. I had married parents. I had all the boxes checked to say you should have a pretty good life, right? So I shouldn't feel bad inside. And so I hid that for quite some time, went on to university, and my mental health struggled even more so being a student athlete. And then as well as, all the things that go along with going to university, you're drinking, not taking care of your body as well as you should. And then I thought, once I graduate from college, then I will be happy, right? We keep chasing that carrot. I actually moved across the country to California. I'm originally from Michigan, more on the east side of the country, and came out west. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to transform my life. And I kept chasing that carrot, the next thing. And I found myself in my early 20s. I had the job, I had graduated, and I thought, wow, I have this thing called health insurance now. I'm going to go see a doctor because they'll fix me. So I went to a psychiatrist. He put me on 3 mind-altering medications in my early 20s after only spending about 15 minutes or so with him. And I continued on a downward spiral with my mental health. And luckily for me, I had this little light inside of me. And I remember when I kind of hit my rock bottom, and that little light was like, you are the only person that can make yourself happy and whole. And so that's what I set forth on the journey to look into alternative ways that can help heal myself. And the funny thing is when I looked into these alternative ways, I quickly realized were alternative. These were the ways that people used to heal themselves way before Western medicine, came in and took over our universities here in the States. But nevertheless, I started to do a lot of little things to shift my biology, to shift my thinking, and I started to heal myself from the inside out.
Wow, what a journey. It's inspirational in terms of how you've turned your health and even your profession around. Yeah, so it's remarkable how, looking from, I guess, or people observing from the outside can sort of assume that they must have everything, going well for them on the inside, and often sometimes, yeah, we get that misperception about the
Yeah.
person, and we have no idea that they're really struggling because
Mhm.
they're essentially, we take an assumption, and I think that
Yeah.
assumption then blinds us from actually asking the questions
Mhm.
to really understand if that person is okay. We just, assume they are, and yeah, it's remarkable. So, in terms of those small things that you did to turn your mental health, your life around, can you please share those?
Yeah. So I had this idea that if you could reprogram a computer, we could reprogram our brains. So I thought I need to change the way I'm thinking and the way I'm viewing the world. And so I started to just change the music I was listening to. I started to stop watching the news. I started to listen to audiobooks and professional doing personal growth books. I started to exercise for enjoyment versus punishment. I stopped counting calories and worrying about every little, calorie I put in my mouth and just started to eat real food. I started to surround myself with positive people. That was another thing is I was attracting these low vibrational people that treated me the way I was treating myself, and I wasn't treating myself well. So I found myself in some pretty poor relationships. And I think the biggest thing that I did was I took ownership of where I was at in my life and I quit blaming the outside world for my circumstances. And I took ownership and I started to say, okay, what can I choose now? How can I shift this now? Because no one was coming to save me. No one was waking up every morning trying to figure out how do I make Anna Marie's life the best life. That was something I got to choose to do. And so it was really essentially rewiring how I was thinking and how I was speaking about my life. And so that started to shift what was going on within me, which then in turn changed everything around me. And so I always say it was never just one thing.
Absolutely, it's the sum of the parts, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that wake up call, that little light bulb moment,
Hmm.
where do you think it's come from? Has it come from one source or multiple sources? What do you attribute that light bulb wake up, Anna Marie, as to, she's in control. It's not, no, stop blaming the outside world. It's time to take control of my life and, and really, yeah, I guess control my, take ownership of my mental health.
Yeah, I definitely think that this lifetime is a time where I get to work through a lot of things. And I'll never forget the moment that I woke up and I was in my psychiatrist's office and I was going back because I wanted him to change the medications that I was on because I was going to tell him, "Hey, these aren't working for me. I need new medicines," as if that was the thing that was going to cure me. And he took a call during my time, and I remember feeling so infuriated. I was so upset that here I was in front of this person and not mentally well, and he just took a call as if I wasn't even there, as if I didn't even exist. And that hit me in a way that was so profound because I allowed it. I mean, I had gone to his office multiple times. It was like I was just like herding sheep, right? I wasn't a person. I wasn't Anna Marie. I wasn't this athlete, this smart woman. I wasn't any of these things. I was just a number. And I allowed that to happen. And for the first time, he got off that call and I told him, I said, "I don't appreciate you taking a call during our session." And it took every ounce of me to say that. I remember it was like my voice was cracking. It was like, oh my gosh. And he was like, sorry, as if he wasn't sorry at all, and went straight back to the questions he was asking me prior to taking the call, as if I was nothing. And I stood up in that moment and I said, I need to leave. And he pulled out my 3 prescriptions. He had already written them before he even saw me. And I remember taking them and looking at them, and I walked out of there. I threw them in the trash. And I remember walking outside and like seeing the blue sky for the first time, seeing the trees green for the first time. And I was like, I am going to change. Like it was like it was almost like I was like someone else was living in my body and I wasn't who I was meant to be. And so yeah, it was my soul saying, "Wake up, sister. Like you've been being a victim long enough. You got some things you need to do in this lifetime. So we need you to wake up, get on board and start doing the thing so you can help other people." And so that's essentially what I started doing from that day forward.
So was that really that light bulb moment was that, I've got to take control. I can no longer trust the outside world or these people that I'm seeing because they don't really care about me. And,
Yeah.
who truly cares about me is me. And therefore I'm going to own my health, own my mental health and take it in my own hands. So where did you go after that? Where was the guidance and support for your mental health?
You know what's interesting is I've had this question before, and I essentially did it on my own. I didn't go see a counselor. I went to books. I went to listening to Christian music. I went to church. I didn't know exactly where to go because of course I went to the doctor. That's what I had thought. And this isn't something people were talking about back then. As, people talk about mental health more now than ever before. But, I look back and knowing what I know now, I probably had some nutrient deficiencies. I probably had some toxicity going on in my body. I did have a brain scan from the Dr. Amen clinics. I'm trained by the Dr. Amen clinics, and he has places all over the United States with SPECT imaging scans. And I do have a brain that represents somebody who has who has PTSD. And so that's just how my brain functions. It doesn't mean that I have to, or I show up in the world with that PTSD and depressed brain that shows in my imaging. I get to mold a new brain and I get to essentially reprogram my brain. And so it was literally just going to church and doing these things. And then I started studying more in nutrition. I started to look at types of workouts and how those affect the brain. I didn't ever know that, if you have anxiety, you shouldn't be doing HIIT training. Like I just started to learn like all these little things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have an undergrad in exercise science. Why were we never talking about the brain and exercise in terms of mental health? So I started to learn all these little nuggets and I just started to explore them on myself, try them on myself, and then started to just like go deeper down the rabbit holes, learn about herbs and plant stem cells and different raw materials that the body needs to be able to function properly, amino acids and how those impact neurotransmitters in the brain. And my mind was just like blown at all the things I started to learn that through all the schooling I had, it was never talked about. And yeah, so I essentially did it just seeking information, and which really catapulted me into what I do today is having a brick and mortar, working with people virtually. So they don't have to do it on their own. They don't have to do, years of studying and trying to find this information. And so I just kind of help people collapse time. You don't have to take a decade or two to heal yourself. You could do it a lot quicker with the right support and the right help.
Wow, it's incredible how you've realized that over time different types of exercises are good for how you're based on mood or based on how you're feeling. You need to moderate your exercise. You need to ensure that you've got a well balanced diet, that you're actually taking in the right amounts, quantities of amino acids in order to produce the neurotransmitters that you need. So I see that as really good resourceful tools, and we can certainly unpack some of that in a bit more detail. But I'm really keen to get to that, back to the PTSD like brain.
Mhm.
So, has there been a PTSD incident in your life that happened that caused your brain to go this way? Or was it just the way you're thinking that drove your brain to be resembling a PTSD like brain?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I thought about that. I've thought about that a lot because when we think of PTSD, we think you've gone to war, you've had some ultra traumatizing things happen to you. And a couple things for me. One, so I was doing some work and this lady I was doing work with kept saying, what happened between the when you were born and about 1 to 2 years old? And I'm like, how would I know that? Like, come on. Like, what kind of and I kept going back to this lady doing sessions, and every 6 months I would do a session with her, and she would bring this up, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." So then I finally said to my mom, I said, "Mom, what happened from, like, born to about 1 to 2 years old? Like, what was going on?" I'm the 4th of 5 children, and my mom just started crying because 'cause I'm like, "This lady said that there's something there," because in the background, like, you know how we all that have that background? I have in the background, nobody wants to spend time with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. So the one that nobody wants to spend time with me or people don't like me, that's been since I was really little. And the I'm not smart enough, that came out of second grade. But that one that has been with me my whole life, my mom, when I asked her this finally, she said, she started crying and she said, "Yeah, I did not want you. I had postpartum. You were such a great baby and I was like a good, calm baby, but I started losing weight. And the doctors told her, your daughter needs to start putting on weight, or like you can get turned into CPS, like you can get turned into an agency that you're not taking care of your kid." So I think that that energy of, and I know that wasn't my mom's intention. My mom is a wonderful mother, but she was going through a period of time. And I think that that energy stayed with me and that frequency of, not being wanted and that, nobody likes me or people don't love me. And then, so I think that part of that was like the initial blow to my psyche and my energy, and then pile on top of that 4th of 5 children, getting picked on. I remember very clearly, I talk about this in my book. In second grade, I was not good at reading comprehension. I could read words, but I couldn't understand what I would read, and I would do my best to read ahead so I would know how to say all the words before the teacher would call on me when we were reading aloud. And so I would like hurry and read ahead. And I remember this one time she asked me a question and I didn't know the answer or something like that happened. And I had read the work, but I didn't comprehend it or remember. And I remember her pointing her finger at me and essentially saying something along the lines that I'll never amount to anything if I don't learn to read. And in my little second grade body, I was like, I am stupid. I am not smart. And then also that my little body was like, but I did it. I really did read the words. Like I really did it. So I always also have this thing that I'm always in trouble too, by the way. Like this, I'm always feeling like, am I in trouble for something? Again, I think all of this contributes to, the brain that I wound up with as an adult. And I have to learn to work with this machinery that I have, and I have to keep it fine tuned. I have to keep it, oiled up, because it can have a tendency to go off track, right? So it's just, I think the PTSD aspect is an accumulative of things. I mean, I'm like any other person where, in high school, I remember the first week of high school, these juniors and seniors were like being very cruel to me, and I always tell people, PTSD can be as simple as you're a kid and someone on the playground who you thought you were friends with says to you, I don't want to play with you anymore, or I don't like you, right? Like as an adult, we may say, oh, well, just go play with someone else, or, oh, they're mean anyways. But that child in that moment, that is their life. That is everything. And it was just ripped away, their best friend or their friend or whoever, it was just ripped away from them. And so, how our brains take on trauma is everybody's different. And we don't get to say, oh, well, that's trauma and this isn't trauma, because I don't think we can do that because everybody is different in how they process things. And at different ages, we process things very differently.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Obviously, it's going quite deep into your personal life, so I appreciate you being so open and just allowing the listeners into your journey, because I'm sure they're resonating with what they're hearing, because they could probably relate to, and I can certainly relate to different experiences that you've experienced. I've had similar but different experiences
Mhm.
in my upbringing. So I'm just intrigued to go back to the person you're seeing that kept mentioning something happened to you when you were 0 to 1.5, because that was very profound insight. And I'm intrigued as to what is their specialty. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so this was, like, almost 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago. During that 5-year time frame, I would go back to this person, and she was simply using some biofeedback and intuitive abilities that she had, and, I mean, it was simply and I use biofeedback today. That's what actually inspired me to get into biofeedback and start using it, and, it's amazing how the body remembers, and our biofield holds all the information of everything from our past to what we're holding on to, and it's completely incredible. But it was biofeedback and then her own intuition.
wow. So what did she? How did she market her services? Like, what was she like? I'm intrigued as to how
Like,
people like
yeah.
find. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like, I mean, there was no marketing. This was simply somebody knew her and did a session, and I was listening, and I was like, "Oh, I wanna do that. Where" and they're like, "Oh, you just call this number." And I literally would go in there, and I would sit in this chair, and I would just sit there, and she would be doing this biofeedback, and I'd be sitting there. Sometimes I would fall asleep, and at the very end, she would bring up a few things that were substantial that she came across, and that was it. I didn't see like, when I do biofeedback, there's a whole screen. I show people what's going on, whether I'm in person or remotely. We're looking at organ systems. We're looking at all this feedback. And hers back then was literally just I sat in this chair.
Wow, wow.
I
And
mean,
so, was it
yeah.
would you say it's like a type of hypnosis that is she accessing the subconscious mind? Like,
Well, she put these things around my wrists, around my ankles, and around my head, to get the biofeedback, essentially to send signals into my body, and then my body would react to those different signals. And so that's essentially what biofeedback is. Now, if we fast forward, because that was so long ago, we all know technology is like incredibly faster. So now we can use biofeedback, really like using it remotely, through the quantum field, or like when I have people in person, I use a headset for them. But yeah, back then it was multiple things that she would attach to my body to get the information out of my body.
okay, so now I'm intrigued about this biofield. So you've got me switched on to this biofeedback. So I'm really keen to better understand it, and I guess I'm like putting myself in the listeners' perspective as to I personally haven't heard much about biofeedback. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
bring me up to speed with the biofeedback in terms of how it works. And
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. So if we think of the body, every or the body, anything on this planet vibrates at a very specific frequency. It's like its own identification code, its own, fingerprint, if you will. And so when we use biofeedback, it's sending different signals into the body, and the body is either responding and connecting those signals or rejecting them. More simplified term is back in the day when we would tune in the radio station, right? We would tune in a very specific station number, and that frequency would go up and it would find its match. And then we would have music in our cars or on our radio or on our headset, right? So this is right a form of frequency connection. Frequencies always want to find their match, right? So when you talk about how like for me, when I was going through the challenges I was going through, I was attracting other people that were similar to me, right? Like misery loves company. We've heard that saying before. We will attract people to essentially the vibration of where we're at. And so, and we can use biofeedback I do this by physically touching people. I can use biofeedback. I don't need a machine. I can use it by essentially, remotely working with them as well. But there are certain points on the body that I can press on those points on your body, and I can have you hold your arm out, and your arm will either fall or it will stay strong depending on what organ system I'm touching, depending on what spot on the body I'm touching. If I'm touching your vitamin D spot and your arm drops, then I'm going to say, all right, Anthony, like, are you taking vitamin D? How much sun are you getting? Do you have a past history of being low in vitamin D? And so the physical body is always giving us feedback. And so biofeedback, we can use, technology to do that. We can physically use our bodies. Also called, there's another word for it. I use energy testing as well. And then,
It like
like physical feedback,
is it like work
kinesiology feedback.
kinesiology?
Yeah, I was like,
Okay.
where did that
Yeah.
word go in my mind?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I also combine with what I do with people is some Chinese medicine as well, where I look at what physical observations is the body giving us, which again is biofeedback. It's your biology giving us feedback. So I'll look at people's tongues. Your tongue says a lot about your health. I'll actually look at your eyes. I'll look at your fingernails. I'll look at your ears. I look at your skin. And again, this is all feedback that the body is constantly giving us. It's just we're no longer trained what that means. Like people think having a line down the middle of their tongue is normal because they've seen it in cartoons. And that is not normal. That's an indication of some digestive issues. And depending on how far the line comes down the middle of the tongue, there's some other indicators there.
Very insightful, and I love how it's a combination of these traditional practices such as Chinese medicine that's been around for thousands of years, and so you're working with these energy systems, which are classified as like whether they're meridians or
Chakras.
chakras. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Yeah.
Depending on whether you're looking at it from a Chinese perspective or an Indian perspective.
Hmm.
So you tap into those chakras and see whether they're blocked, whether the energy is flowing through them or the energy stuck in those
Hmm.
certain energy centers. And is that how you're applying the biofeedback with respect to the energy centers?
Yeah, that's one of the ways. Yeah, so I'll check the chakras, look at meridian points. I also study work by Donna Eden, who does a lot with energy medicine as well. And so I teach people different tapping points on the body, different things that they can do to align their chakras, meridians, and just essentially their biofield. It's really fascinating. And people may wonder, well, what's a chakra? And a chakra is, think of it as pinwheels of energy that flow in and out of the body, forward and back, from the base of your spine through the crown of your head. And those pinwheels of energy go in and out. Anytime there's an impedance in that energy flow, it can cause a psychological or physical ailment. And so we never want the energy to be blocked. Same with meridians. Meridians are what I say, they're highways of energy that go through the organ systems, connect muscle. And anytime there's a blockage in one of your highways, again, it can cause a physical or psychological ailment. And when people hear, in both of these fields, they're like blueprints. They feed into your auric field, your biofield. People are like, well, that just sounds a little, I don't understand, right? But then it's like, okay, well, how in the world does your cell phone work, right? If you go into an older building and your Wi-Fi signal or your phone signal is like low, in your phone it kind of works but it's kind of not working, and you're like, your apps are just spinning, and it's frustrating, right? You're like, gosh, I need to go get a signal, I need to like get this to work. The same thing happens in the body. If you have any energy being blocked in the body, your body cannot function as efficiently and as properly as it should. Yes, you'll get by, but it doesn't feel smooth and easy. Things get harder and harder and harder. And so, our phones are a perfect example of energy and frequency. And so, we will completely dismiss energy and frequency in the body, but yet we'll believe in our cell phones. And I always tell people, if you go inside every single cell until you can't go any further in the body, the only thing that's left is energy. So, to not address the energetics of the human body, I believe we are missing a whole aspect of healing. And most people don't want to talk about it because we don't fully understand it. But why do, like, if you think about like energy and frequency, those of you out there that believe in prayer, right? So, if you believe in prayer, you're saying a specific prayer. Your intention is for that prayer and that message to go to someone, somewhere. And I believe in prayer because I believe anything that we say with intention carries a frequency and it will be delivered to that person. And so if we believe in prayer, then we believe in energy and we believe in frequency. It's just it's a very beautiful thing that we have the power to connect with each other from far, far away, and we have the ability to connect with our inner soul and our body. It's just we haven't been taught in this generation how to do that, how to understand it, and it's been kind of, oh, well, that's kind of weird, right? So that's why it's not readily available.
That's fantastic insight that you've shared and really made it easier, much easier for listeners to understand what you're talking about in terms of energy fields and biofeedback. Now I'm keen to get back to your story because it's very intriguing. And that when you've asked your mum about, what happened to me when I was 0 to 1.5, and your mother broke down and shared with you in terms of where she was at and how she was feeling towards you and whatnot. So after that, where did you go? Like, so, because you mentioned at the start of the episode that, reprogramming the brain is, one of these real instrumental areas that you work in, believe in, and that we have this neuroplasticity. And so
Yes.
obviously your brain, at 20 years beyond that event of, between 0 and 1.5, is wired in a particular way. It's coming up. It's like PTSD like brain. What was the process in terms of rewiring that PTSD like brain? Because certainly what you're sharing today is well beyond where you were.
Yeah. Well, I think one, understanding where we came from and what happened in our life, that's one piece of it. But we don't, like, okay, now I know almost the full story, right? I almost know the full story and that makes sense now. So that helps me as a grown up be like, okay, yeah, that happened, that energy was there for sure. But how I work through it is when I am showing up in life as an adult and I'm already assuming people don't like me, I'm already assuming that people don't want to spend time with me, I have to like check myself and be like, okay, you're doing that thing again. Is this true? But what's interesting is when we do have a brain that is, well, any of us with the brain that we have, our brains are automatically going to filter the world to avoid danger. So my brain registered that danger means that when somebody doesn't like you, that is a bad thing, that is dangerous, right? This is my little mind thinking that when I was little. And so now, as a grown up, I have found myself going through life. And then it's like, oh, somebody didn't do something for me. Oh, well, they don't like me, right? Because my brain is filtering the world to justify and to say, well, yeah, because of this, right? So I've had to like really check in with myself and be like, okay, is this true? Okay, is this from programming from the background? And then I always ask myself a open-ended question because when we are living in past emotions, we're coming from the limbic state of the brain, the emotional state of the brain. And so when we're coming in any decision making that we're at, and we're coming from the emotional state of the brain, when we ask ourselves an open ended question, it forces us to use our prefrontal cortex, which is our executive function thinking. So I have to, when I go to my like automatic responses, which are way less now than ever, right? But they're still there. Like we don't get to just like get rid of it. We can quiet it down and minimize it and push it to the background. But when it comes up, I don't attach emotion to it. I don't get emotional. And I'm just like, oh, you're doing that thing again. Or, oh, is that really true? The moment we attach an emotion to something is the moment we give it more power, we give it more fuel. And so the very past that we have, that we do not desire, that we do not want, the most important thing we can do is extract the lessons from the past, take them into our future, the lessons, but leave the emotions in the past. And that's kind of an art to get to that point. I do this worksheet. Well, I have my clients do this worksheet. It's how we find the value gained in different situations in our life out of, past traumas or past things that weren't so fortunate. And the moment we extract the value gained, it gives us gratitude for, oh, I went through that because, versus, oh, I went through that and I'm still hurting. And so we find the value in it. Like, I know I went through, I have so many stories, but I know I went through what I went through, and just the small stories I shared with you guys today, because it helps me with, one, who I'm becoming, and two, how I show up and I'm able to give people space and how I support them. I would never be able to do what I'm doing today had I not gone through the challenges in my life that I had. So I'm so grateful for them. There's so much value that I've gained in my life, and it didn't always feel great. But I mean, at this point, who cares? I don't have to feel that pain again. I get to choose to take the lessons and move forward in my life.
Fantastic. It's really profound insight that you shared there around, because like at the time of 0 to 1, the focus was on what was lost. It was lost connection with mum, lost connection with siblings, and it was all about what you had lost in terms of connections. But what I'm hearing now is now you're looking to balance that, and to have that more prefrontal cortex function where you can see things objectively. You can see things both sides. It's got, there was, okay, I'd lost these connections, but what was the value gained? Where have I, gained connections? And obviously you connected strong to athletics, and that was a strong connection. And you probably wouldn't have been the athlete if it wasn't for what had happened to you between 0 and 1.5, because you embraced athletics, you went after it, you chased it, and you felt connected. You felt
Yeah.
connected to exercise. And so I'm just curious as to hear a few more of these value gains, because I think that's really important insight for the
Mhm.
listeners. Is often they will encounter events where they perceive, just loss, or everything is just negative about it. But you're asking them
Yeah.
to say, no, let's gain a balanced perspective on it. Let's look for the other side. Let's look at what you've gained. How have
Yeah.
you benefited it? How's it served you? So
Mhm.
I'm just really keen as to what profound insight you've come up with in terms of that abandonment, because that abandonment is pretty much, kids will face that
Oh,
sometime,
yeah.
whether it be primary or high school, right?
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah. I remember walking into junior high one day and I was out. Everyone was mad at me. I didn't know what I had done. I mean, literally, I went into school and I had no friends. My group of friends turned their back on me. I didn't know what had happened. That was definitely another trigger. But the value gained from that, looking back, is I never, ever want someone to feel like they are being left out in my life. I am the one that is going to, I haven't talked to you in 6 months. I'm the one that's gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna call, or I'm gonna send the text that says, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." I am the one that's gonna say, "Oh, you didn't get a ticket to this? Oh, just come, more the merrier." It's like I am the one that is like, any person that walks into my office, they are automatically going to feel like they are being heard and that I see them. That is so important to me. I never want a single person to feel lonely and to feel like they are being left out. That it breaks my heart to even think that someone would feel that way. That was a huge, huge value gain to me. And then another value gain, the first time I was fired from a Dairy Queen. And the value gain from that was, will close a door for you on purpose because there's a window open somewhere else, and you weren't noticing that that was open until you got the door closed on you. And so whenever the door closes on me in my life, because this will happen to all of us, especially when we're not listening, especially when we're not paying attention to that inner soul that's telling you, you need to change, you need to shift this, leave that job, stop doing that thing in that relationship. And we keep saying, no, but it's easier. And we keep staying in it. The universe is going to literally shut a door in your face. They are going to body slam you, and and it's just so you'll make that change. And so I've really realized, and there was another moment in my life that was, I was in a very bad relationship. And I remember I kept praying, God, get me out of this relationship, get me out of this relationship. And something pretty traumatic happened to me. And I kept asking for that to happen to me, and it did. And instead of being so angry that that happened to me, in that trauma, I was actually relieved. And so it was like, okay, value there is to recognize anything we ask for, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we will get it. So we need to not focus on the things we don't want. We need to focus on the things we do want. And then also that someone is always listening, always listening. Even if you're talking to yourself, somebody is always listening. And so those were some other values gained. Second grade teacher, uh, not feeling smart enough, the value gain there. I don't care what your education level is. I know you have some value and something incredible inside of you that, and you do it in a unique way that no one else does it. And I have so much to learn from every person I come across. I don't care if it's a 2-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 99-year-old. They all have some value and something that they can teach us. So helping people feel that that they're smart, and again, that they're heard, that they're seen. I mean, all of these are such great values that I was able to extract from those moments.
It's amazing because as you share that value gained in relation to some of past events, I was thinking back to what you shared around that psychiatrist and you sitting in there, him taking a phone call, ignoring you, making you feel like you're just a number or you're not even there. So he's
Mhm.
basically he's not even seeing you there, and he's not listening to you. And I was thinking, okay, who's listening? Well, that was you listening because you were listening. And what he did was wake you up
Mhm.
and made you listen to yourself, and then you felt empowered in that moment to speak up and speak out, and then you walked out and you saw the blue horizon. You
Mhm.
could see now, and now you're showing up as to the person you want to show up as, and that is someone that's always there for their client, always seeing them, always hearing them. And that's how
Mhm.
you're so good at biofeedback, because you're totally present with them. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yes.
So I really appreciate the conversation, the in-depth conversation, and the openness that you've expressed today, because I think what you've shared, the listeners can relate to some part of your journey, and I think what they're doing is hearing you, and if they're watching on YouTube, they're seeing you, and this could be their wake-up call. This could be their waking up moment. So I really appreciate you sharing your personal story and what's helped you. And for those listeners that are either watching or hearing you, how can they best connect with you? How can they best reach out for help if they're looking for that guidance?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, dr.anna, two N's, dot Marie on Instagram, or our brick and mortar that's located in Bakersfield, California, our wellness center is at Happy Whole You on Instagram. Then I'm on LinkedIn, and then our website, happywholeyou.com. So, in this day and age, you can, if you want to find me, you will. And I would be grateful to work with anyone.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing where people can find you. And to the listeners and viewers, I'll incorporate all those links that Dr. Anna Marie shared in the show notes. So just go directly to the show notes and click on the link and reach out to Dr. Anna Marie. And I just wanted to, I didn't ask you this at the beginning, but I'm intrigued as to what you are a doctor in. What did you do your PhD in?
In natural medicine. And I'm a traditional naturopath, so not breaking the skin, not using synthetic drugs. There's a time and a place for, you know, everything. But I believe the very last result should be drugs and synthetics of medications and things like that. So I'm trained old school.
Fantastic. And so you're helping people connect with traditional medicine.
Yes, yes, the original OG of medicine.
Absolutely. And you're strongly connected with it, and you're helping those see, I guess, well, you're providing options for people that they don't need to go down one specific path. Here's another path that gets great results, where it's non-intrusive, non-invasive, and it is just tapping into the body's innate healing. So,
Yeah. Can I throw in one more thing? So this is very fascinating to me, that when I learned that the brain is the only organ in the body that a doctor will prescribe medication for when they've never scanned it, looked at it, or have seen it, I found that very interesting. We would never put someone on heart medication without evaluating the heart, right? We would never put someone on different medications without, diagnosing and proper, you know, looking at these organ systems. And the brain is the only one, that doctors aren't looking at and prescribing medication for. And there's really no way to measure brain chemistry. So when someone says your brain chemistry is off, because that's what I was told, how did he know that? So yeah, so with my work, it's like I know that we can do holistic things first that will make a big change in our mental health. And it's just knowing what to do. Because when you aren't well with your mental health, it can feel overwhelming. I get that. I have been there. So with clients, we just start with 2 or 3 things. And maybe it's one thing you do tomorrow and one thing you do after that, and then another thing. But I think all of us should be questioning the medications that we're being told that we have to have or that we need to take. I'm a big proponent of just ask a lot of questions. Before you go on a medication, ask your doctor how long you should be on it, and how will they take you off of it? Because that's the other problem, is a lot of women are prescribed SSRIs, antidepressants, and are told, oh, well, it's just for a period of time. And then they're on them 5, 6, 10 years later. And, they're not trained on how to take people off medications. It's a trial and error thing. So I'm a big proponent, ask a lot of questions, and I would look into some holistic things first and foremost.
Oh, fantastic share there, Dr. Anna Marie. I really appreciate you coming on, putting aside your time, and really enlightening and educating the listeners of Me and My Health Up.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Podcast disclaimer. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare or professional advice and are provided for general information purposes only. All care is taken in the preparation of the information in this podcast. Connected Wellness Proprietary Limited, operating under the brand Me and My Health Up, does not make any representations or give any warranties about its accuracy, reliability, completeness, or suitability for any particular purpose. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it are not to be used as a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, psychiatric, or any other mental health care or healthcare in general. Me and My Health Up recommends you seek the advice of a doctor or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Inform your doctor of any changes that you may to your lifestyle and discuss these with your doctor. Do not disregard medical advice or delay visiting a medical professional because of something you hear in this podcast. This podcast has been carefully prepared on the basis of current information. Changes in circumstances after publication may affect the accuracy of this information. To the maximum extent permitted by the law, Me and My Health Up disclaims any such representations or warranties to the completeness, accuracy, merchantability, or fitness for purpose of this podcast, and will not be liable for any expenses, losses, damages incurred, indirect or consequential damages, or costs that may be incurred as a result of the information being inaccurate or incomplete in any way and for any reason. No part of this podcast can be reproduced, redistributed, published, copied, or duplicated in a form without prior permission of Me and My Health Up.